Ladies and gentlemen, how are you all doing today? I'm quite excited because today we made history on the stock exchange in Nigeria. Agri giant Presco traded at the 1,000 naira mark and actually ended today's trading session on the stock exchange at 1,000 naira. And that's history because the company joins a select group of firms on the stock exchange that have either traded at this point or higher or are currently trading at this point. So you have Airtel Africa, you have Nestle Nigeria, you have Seplat. These are the other companies that are trading above the 1,000 naira mark. And for those who are wondering why do I have palm fronds all over the screen, Presco is a company in the agri space. They are into the production and processing of oil, palm oil, and the likes. And so it's a major firm on the exchange. Now, where do we? I think the stock will trade next, and these are just my views anyway. The 1,000 naira mark is a significant one because if you are a trader, at that point, it's either the stock could form that as a base, meaning you could take it as its lowest price point, it could settle at that point, or it's possible that that could be a ceiling. So people could decide to take profit tomorrow. I mean, if you've held this stock in the last year to date, I think it's up by over 100%. So you've beaten inflation in Nigeria, you've beaten the all share index, which measures average performance of stocks. So you might decide, let me take some profit off the table. You could also decide, as if you are in the view that this stock could have the 1,000 naira as a base. That maybe I think this stock still has maybe 10-20% more room, and some people might decide to do that. The only downside with this stock is that it is not a very liquid stock. I mean, today where finally broke the 1,000 naira point, it traded around 300,000 shares in total today, around 310, I think 318,000 shares, which is quite tiny. Now, I realized that for retail investors, then liquidity isn't a big thing, but you have to think of it because if you go into a stock that is thinly traded, that is not very liquid, getting in is not a problem, getting out is a problem. So some people might say, hey, if I think there's further upside and I'm willing to sit there for a few years, I'm not in a hurry, I might do that. From a evaluation standpoint or just from an earning standpoint, the stock is currently trading at about 5.2 times earnings. And you can see the numbers I've worked out. So in case you're wondering how I got 5.2, you take the 1,000 naira, which is its current share price, and you divide it by the estimated earnings per share that it will make this year. In my view, I think the estimated earnings per share probably will hit 200 naira. So EPS or earnings per share, you can kind of think of it as profit per share made by the firm, right? So you take the profit divided by the number of shares, you get your earnings per share. And the first quarter, first 3 months of 2025, that figure was 47.48. So if you multiply 47.48 multiplied by 4, this is what you get. In reality, I think that it could end around maybe 200 naira earnings per share for the 2025 financial year, or maybe 210, because the company acquired a firm in Ghana. And I think from the second quarter that we're about to round up in June, it would fully consolidate those numbers. When I looked at the first quarter numbers, the Ghana operations accounted for around 20% of total revenue. So I think that barring any unforeseen circumstances, it definitely would end the year around 200 naira earnings per share. So if you take 1,000 naira share price divided by 200 naira, 190, you get around 5 point something times earnings, or 5.2x, meaning the stock is trading at 5 times its earnings. That is slightly lower than the average PE ratio on the exchange at the moment, which is 7.1 times earnings. So if you are looking at it from that angle, then you might argue that there is some room for further movement. If you're a technical person, you might say this is a new price point. I want to sit down and wait, maybe to pull back and all. So whichever way you look at it, there are arguments for both sides of the case. Now, please note that this is not investment or trading advice. These are just merely my thoughts. As an analyst, I'm just watching the markets. When I see something interesting or when there's a key event, I talk about it. So please like, share, subscribe. Thank you to everyone who's done so, and have a good day ahead.